The Buff Geek podcast is sponsored by Alpha Fitness. Contact Alpha Fitness today at alpha-fitness.co.uk or 07597 088 056 for all of your fitness needs. Hashtag AYG. What's happening, guys? Welcome to the Buff Geek podcast, and today we'll be talking about the following topics. 1. Brock Lesnar, Bork Laser. Is he suspended? Did he cheat? We'll talk about steroids. We'll talk about performance-enhancing drugs. The second topic is former wrestlers suing the WWE for concussions and other such problems, other such physical problems that they've suffered in their time away from the ring, and probably during that time. So, the first one, let's start off with Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar has recently fought in the UFC in his first mixed martial arts fight in, I believe, 5 years. He defeated Mark Hunt, and the way it's written is that he defeated him soundly with ease, but I gotta say, if you watch the fight, the second round was a little bit touch and go there, and I think that Brock Lesnar's cornerman, who told him to let Mark Hunt come to him, was absolutely wrong in this case. Mark Hunt was spent. He was spent after the first round, and he was in no fit shape to go into the second round, in my opinion. But because Brock stayed back, and then if you ever watch Brock fight, you can see if he starts to doubt himself, his confidence dips hugely, and then his performance suffers. So he was staying back, and Mark Hunt wasn't coming at him and then throwing the occasional retort if Brock did go to make a move, and it just meant the second round, well, obviously lasted the full 5 minutes, and wasn't very comfortable for for Brock Lesnar certainly, but it gave Mark Hunt time to recover. So I think that was a bad shout from his corner. I think Brock should have steamrolled him straight away, and I think he would have taken Mark Hunt out in the second round, and he would have won me some money because I had some bets on that fight. I thought he was going to either tap him in the first or knock him out in the second, but no, he had to take a decision in the third. However, we've got the win for Brock, and Brock is my boy. And then it comes out that maybe there was a tainted sample. Tainted, I mean, by Brock Lesnar, potentially. So has Brock taken some sort of performing-enhancing drugs in or around the time of the fight? Now, the sample, I believe, is taken about 4 weeks prior, and usually fighters are tested up to maybe 3 months or 4 months before a fight sometimes, and certainly returning fighters are tested prior to coming back to the ring. And when I say returning, I mean after a lengthy retirement, not after a break in competition, which can obviously last a while also. They will be tested too. So we've got Brock coming back, and about a month beforehand it would be apparent that maybe he had taken some performance enhancing drugs, or PEDs, PEDs. So Brock has taken some steroids, basically. I don't think anyone should be surprised by this. I don't think anyone should be surprised that most professional athletes take steroids. I go to my local gym, and every gym I've been to, lots and lots of guys take steroids. Lots of guys take them. And now, since the popularity of fitness has become so much more mainstream, a lot more girls are taking things as well. I mean, people are throwing up some crazy ass numbers. I'm going to get some heat for this. People are throwing up some crazy ass numbers, and I know guys that are lifting things that, strongmen are lifting. Professional strongmen are lifting in these kind of categories, and I know guys that are lifting very close to, maybe not quite as many reps for that poundage, but far and away more than what is naturally capable, in my humble opinion. And the thing is, if it looks like a chicken, and it sounds like a chicken, and it walks like a chicken, it's probably a chicken. So apparently someone's broken the law. Hopefully in post I can take out this screaming ambulance sound, but if not, I apologise for that. Um, so yeah, people are throwing up these crazy ass numbers and they're strong as hell and people are looking super ripped. You get different steroids for different things. You get ones that make you bigger, ones that make you stronger, ones that make you faster, ones that make you leaner. Um, just the same as you get different workouts that focus on these different avenues. Now, if you if you assume that you take a steroid for making you more defined, more ripped, and you performed a workout that was more akin towards that, that doesn't mean that you won't get stronger or faster. It's just when I talk about different steroids or different workouts doing different things, it means that it's the most optimum way to get strong or to get this or to get that, as opposed to it only giving you something. I mean, I can do strength work, and I can do really light, and I can do very light muscular endurance work and get pretty much a bodybuilding pump out of it because of the way my body is. So there's obviously the individual factor as well. But even if I did strength work, I'm still going to be doing bodybuilding to an extent. Bodybuilding being at the hypertrophy range of, say 8 to 12 reps, many sets, lowish rest periods. I'm still going to get that bodybuilding hit even if I take 3 to 5 minutes in between sets of 5, because I'm still going to build muscle. It's just not the most optimum way. But I digress. So Brock Lesnar's taking some steroids, and I mean, I could honestly say that it'd be easier testing fighters and then saying who didn't take some gear, and it'd be the same for most sports. It would be the same for, especially for actors who suddenly, I mean, it happened few and far between. The person I can think of that comes to mind is Christian Bale, who would change his body drastically for film roles. If you remember The Machinist, which I think came out, and I want to say 2004 here, you can fact check me on that. The Machinist came out in 2004, and then Batman comes out in 2005, and in that time he went from something like 8.5, 9 stone at 6'2" to like 16 stone in a month. Okay, so he's hardly eating anything, and then he goes to gorging himself. But that's not physically possible to put on that much weight that quickly, and also for it to be such quality as he had. It was joked that I think it was the director, but it might not have been. It might not have been Chris Nolan, said to him, Bruce, this is Batman, not Fat Man. He got so big. He wasn't actually fat, but they wanted him to be be able to move in the suit and look a bit more athletic than he was. He looked too much like a bodybuilder. He looked too blocky. So actors have been doing it, and more so recently, as it's become more important for someone to have a better body, even just in the everyday dating scene and life. So you've got actors coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, I got in shape in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months," and I'm trying to think of someone here. Hugh Jackman. I love me some Hugh Jackman. But look at his first X-Men film and look at his last one, and that's a 17-year swing. And a man's testosterone depletes over time. Now you could say it's just consistency, but the condition of him, especially in Days of Future Past, is insane. So you can maybe assume that our man Hugh is taking a couple of things. Or someone like, well, The Rock, obviously. I had this conversation with someone the other day. They were surprised when I said, of course The Rock is on steroids. Just look at him. It's particularly difficult when you're a very tall individual to be big and full looking, have full looking muscles, but not overspill and be fat. It's hard when you're getting into that 5'11", 6 foot, 6'3", 6'4", and The Rock's maybe billed as 6'5" in his wrestling stats. I'd assume, I think he's probably more like 6'3" from people I've met and such and stood with. But either way, if he's in the plus 6 foot and 16, 17, 18 stone with abs, that's very, very hard to do. And that is not to say the man does not work hard. That's not to say that people who take steroids don't work hard. In fact, in a lot of ways, The people who look amazing work harder than people who don't take them. That's right, because that is their life. So there's two types of people who take steroids. People who want a shortcut, and people who, have a dream of this physical perfection, or maybe a certain standard in a sport, whether that be bodybuilding, golfing, wrestling, whatever. They have a certain standard they need to attain, and it's kind of the way that, well, everyone else does it, and that's what you need to do to get to that level, and maybe you just want to be the best. And when you know that all your heroes like Arnold and everyone in between took it, then you kind of think, well, maybe that's just life. That's just life. So the people that take it and want to be the best, they're doing it for the right reasons. Hopefully they're doing it safely, and quite often these people are very knowledgeable about it, so they probably are doing it safely. The biggest guys, your Mr. Olympias, are probably taking a lot less than you think, and they're also supplementing all of that with great training, amazing nutrition, sleep, good hydration, stretching. That's why they look like that. You can't just take, Mr. Olympia's stack and expect to look a certain way. I couldn't just go and take, I'm showing my age here, Ronnie Coleman's stack and then look like Ronnie Coleman, even though I work out, eat well, lift weights, all this kind of stuff, because I don't do it to the level that he does. And even with all that stuff that he might be taking, I wouldn't look like that. I just wouldn't look like that. So my point is that you've got other people who aren't trying to reach this goal. Other people who just want to look a bit better, look a bit tighter, look a bit bigger, be a bit stronger, whatever. Want to look good for the weekend. Want to look good for MAGA 16. They want to look good for that holiday. So you got guys taking stuff just to look good at the weekend and be bigger than their friends. Yet people get surprised when they find out that an actor or an athlete who's on millions and millions of pounds, and how they feed their family, how they feed themselves, and their passion to be the best at their sport, their passion to be the best actor is determined on how they look. And that is sometimes, how they look and how they perform. Certainly when it comes to actors, how they look. And that's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, I suppose, but at the end of the day, we are a very, what's what I'm looking for here? Superficial society, You want to see an action film, the guy needs to be looking solid. You expect him to look solid, and that is not to say that you can't have a fighter who's kind of flabby or looks out of shape, who isn't going to kick your ass. And that is not to say that a big, monstrous, ripped bodybuilder type is hard. It just goes with the perception. So, did Brock Lesnar take steroids? I think he did. Of course he did. Of course he did, and of course he does. Has he been caught for it? Yes. So he's screwed up. That's where he's screwed up. He's screwed up by not hiding it well. And that's the problem. So I already believe he did. Do I think it matters? Probably not. Gosh, Mark Hunt might be taking performance enhancers. Just because he's flabby doesn't mean he's not taking something to make him stronger and faster and be able to survive the training. It's about recovery. A lot of it is to do with recovery. You recover quicker so you can train more. So if I train twice a week, but someone else can train 4 times a week, they'll have double the gains of me. There might be problems with that, such as there's more chance of getting injured quicker, or having maybe some problems with your joints and such. But then if you look at someone who trains 6 times a week or twice a day 6 times a week, how do you think these people handle the training? It's mental toughness, and physically it couldn't be done without these drugs. I invite all of you to go watch a documentary. It's on Netflix, or certainly it was. There's 2. There's Bigger, Stronger, Faster and Prescription Thugs. That's Prescription Thugs. These are both documentaries by Chris Bell. So if you're into bodybuilding, powerlifting, and all this kind of stuff, you'll recognize Mark Bell. Well, Chris Bell is his little brother. Oh no, Chris Bell's his older brother. Um, the one I really want you to watch right now is Prescription Thugs. That has some interviews with sports personalities. Um, one of them is, I think it's Chris Lieben, the guy that used to dye his hair red for fights. He was not only, well, he was I think a heroin addict. I think he admits in the show, in the documentary. And then you think, how could he be a heroin addict and a UFC fighter? You know? Oh wait, maybe, wow, maybe they cover it up. Maybe on show day if he turns up all effed up, they still send him out there because it's a show day and it's mega bucks. And then if you start suspending him, you got to suspend all these other guys for being effed up on coke, heroin, whatever, and then you've got the performance enhancers. Now I have no respect for people that take recreational drugs, but performance enhancers, I can at least understand where that comes from. Okay, so did Brock take them? Yes. Will he be caught for them? Maybe. He might get away with it. The next question is, should the decision be overturned? Well, I'm under no disillusions that a lot of the fighters use PEDs and they cycle off before the fights for accurate testing, or they hide it in some way. So, no, I don't think so. Mark Hunt could take them if he wanted to, and maybe he does. Maybe he just didn't get caught this time. So I'm not that fussed about the decision, really, because most of the guys Brock's fought in the past have taken them, such as Frank Mir and Randy Couture. It was even Steven. But if you're considering that, if you think it is unfair, then maybe it should be overturned. I don't think so, but I'm not too fussed. I won't be up in arms if he does have to, if it's a no contest, or maybe it should be a no contest and they have another fight. But you know what? Brock will still be taking stuff. He'll just do it better. And Mark Hunt might take stuff. Should he give some of the money to Mark Hunt? Well, that's a different topic. I think Mark Hunt deserves more money because he was a big part of the fight. So I think he should get a little bit more money for these fights, but that's not the way that it works. Brock is the big draw, and Mark Hunt was probably not going to get a fight that would have given him that sort of money anyway. So he's getting a better payday than he normally would just by being in the, I almost said in the ring, in the octagon with Brock Lesnar. So again, well, that's the nature of the business. Brock brings in the big bucks, so he gets paid the big bucks. Should he be fined? Probably, just for the company to save face, and just to look like they're doing something. But the company will know what these guys do. The company knows. So don't be under any disillusion of that. And the last thing, I suppose, is Brock Lesnar going to be able to compete at SummerSlam against Randy Orton this year? Well, according to, and I want to say, is it the Nevada Athletic Commission? I'm just going to double check that. I feel like it's, well, I'm not going to double check it. I think it is. And their SummerSlam match is in New York this year. I think, I know actually that they've said that Brock will fight at SummerSlam. So Brock is fighting at SummerSlam. He can fight Randy Orton, and I've heard rumours that Randy Orton's going to retire, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I'm just going to take a drink of my coffee. I'm sorry, but I loves it. And I want to actually find out how it sounds when I drink. If it sounds awful, I'll never ever do it again. So this might be the first and last time. Okay, so we covered Brock Lesnar pretty much, but in a roundup fashion. Is he guilty? Yes. Will he be found guilty? Maybe. Do I think the fight should be a no contest? Actually, after just speaking out loud, I've decided, yeah, it probably should be. And should he have a fine? Yeah, he probably should have a fine as well. But I'm under no disillusion that he takes performance enhancers, and you should be under none either, especially when it comes to actors in Hollywood as well. And, at the end of the day, maybe some guys at your local gym are stronger and bigger than you, and they take stuff. And that's up to them. That's up to them. Don't concern yourself with that. If you want to be stronger and bigger, work harder. And then if you want to take stuff, you can take stuff. You have the option, but don't be hating on them for their choices, because that's their choice. That's their choice and their goal. Whatever. Who cares? Live and let live. Okay, next topic is former WWE wrestlers suing the WWE for concussions. Now, this one I'll have to look up a couple of things because I'm hoping to use a couple of fancy words, some proper terminology. But I've got some names here of people that are trying to sue the WWE. So we've got Paul Orndorff, Chavo Guerrero, Brian Clark, Ahmed Johnson, Kamala, the referees Dave and Earl Hebner. We've got Act and Smash, Sabu, Ken Patera, Mohammed Hassan, Heidenreich, Marty Jannetty, Mark Jindrak. The list goes on. Apparently there's 50 guys here. And they're trying to sue the WWE for, I am going to check this one on the old interwebs. They're trying to sue them for concussions and a couple of other things, basically saying that WWE didn't look after them. They have them. If you don't know this, WWE consider their wrestlers to be independent contractors, which kind of means that they can sidestep some responsibilities as an employer, but also if you've got a contract with them, they are not allowed to work anywhere else. Now, I'm not in construction, but I believe that might be the case for some very large companies with who are subcontracting to other companies. It might be. I might be wrong. And I want to find out what this actually states here. I want to find the statement. Well, there's one quote here saying WWE placed corporate gain over its wrestlers' health, safety, and financial security, choosing to leave the plaintiffs severely injured and with no recourse to treat their damaged minds and bodies. Okay, so what have we got here? I'm looking for the name, the medical name for what they're charging them with here in terms of the concussions. So I don't just call it concussions all the time. I had it looked out, but I have since lost it. Okay, so what have we got? We've got a company who provide an entertainment based on two guys or girls, but I didn't see any women on the list. Two guys pretending to fight each other live and make it look as real as possible live in front of a live audience. Okay. Do you think that if you pretend to fight someone, and this would be speaking to some of my actor friends as well, when you do stage combat, do you think if you pretend to fight someone, you might get hurt? Interesting. I'm going to go with a yes. I'm going to go with a definite yes. The amount of people that I know that have done stage fighting, stage combat, or whatever you want to call it, who have been injured are numerous. I mean, I've watched various interviews with actors who have said, "Oh, I got injured on set doing this, doing that." I think, oh gosh, I can't remember the guy's name now. There was a young chap recently who got injured filming last year, and they've had to stop the filming. I want to call it the. It's not the Hunger Games. I've forgotten the name of it. I'm sorry. There's a young chap who got injured recently, but multiple actors have been injured multiple times performing their own stunts. So basically, you're signing up to do stunt work, and it's also under the umbrella of being a sport, because you actually have to be an athlete to be a wrestler, no matter what anyone says, and you don't expect to maybe get a concussion or two, or to be injured, or for that to affect you in any way, like taking these bumps. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever wrestled before. I am sometimes a wrestler. It has been known, and taking bumps and taking your suplexes and a body slam, that shit hurts. It hurts, and even just some of the grappling and stuff like that, you can knock heads very easy. The whole thing. Wrestling is not for pussies. I've I've done wrestling training. I've wrestled plenty of matches. I've went to mixed martial arts training. I've went to boxing training. I obviously lift weights. Wrestling training is the hardest training, and you're way more beat up from wrestling training than you are from mixed martial arts training. Now, of course, I am not doing it at the highest level, and I'm not doing live sparring sessions. So that's going to be a different story. But from my experience, I've done some sparring sessions actually. I'm way more beat up from a wrestling training session than I am from mixed martial arts. In any way, I might be more cardiovascularly challenged at a mixed martial arts session, but I'm way more beat up. Like my whole body's beat up and it's hard to bend, whereas I might have sore bits on me. Now this kid here is going to start playing his frickin' bagpipes, but I'm still hoping that in post this will come out. I do think what I'm going to do is change rooms, so bear with me here while I do that. So you got these wrestlers that it's quite an interesting one because this is only my second podcast and I'm now moving about with the recording equipment. So it'll be interesting to see how that handles, and also interesting to see if I can cut out various external sounds that I don't want. Maybe I can't, and again, apologies for that. So you got these wrestlers suing for competing in a sport, which if you compete in a sport, you're probably going to get hurt. That's the first thing. If you compete in a sport where you might be fighting or being very, very physical, there's a higher chance. There's a higher chance of getting hurt. And then you've got guys suing the WWE for concussions when they didn't originally go to them to do their training. So, and I'm going to be, making up some names here of coaches, such as we're going to have. Let's look at Road Warrior Animal, or Road Warrior Animal will do, right? So he goes to a guy and says, I want to learn how to wrestle. And we're going to call the guy Neil Strauss. No, we can't call him that. That's a real person. We're going to call him Big Neil. So he goes to a guy, Big Neil, says, I want to learn how to wrestle. And Neil says, right, okay, we're going to teach you how to wrestle. He learns how to wrestle. He works for a company. He works for a different wrestling promotion. He works for another wrestling promotion. After 2, 5, whatever years, he goes to WWF, as it was known at the time. Now, I believe that Road Warrior Animal wrestled in the AWA, and he would have wrestled for probably the NWA prior, and probably even World Class Championship Wrestling. And I'm even going to throw out where? Maybe Memphis. He would have wrestled in Memphis, as well as all these smaller promotions that no one has heard of now. And then he goes to WWF, wrestles for them, goes to WCW, goes back and forth, blah, 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 wrestles for TNA, wrestles for some company in Scotland or whatever, but he sues WWE because they didn't tell him he might get a concussion or he might have problems down the line. Well, the thing is, you worked for a lot of companies in that time. You wrestled prior to wrestling for WWE. You wrestled for companies prior to that. In fact, he had a decent career before he got to the WWE. But you're going to blame them for your concussions. Well, could it be the case that maybe you got the concussions beforehand? Could it be the case that maybe when you went to involve yourself in a sport where you beat up guys for a living, and this is back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, when Road Warrior Animal and his partner Hawk would legit beat up guys, beat up their opponents in the ring. Jobbers, they beat up jobbers. So, can you imagine how the jobbers feel now? I think it's hilarious that Animal's getting in this, because he's a big bully. For all intents and purposes, he is a bully. And he bullied guys that were smaller than him, and he bullied guys that were less popular or not as high up the card as him. And damn sure would have given the people concussions in these matches. If you've seen some of the matches with the jobbers from back in the 80s or even early 90s, these guys got their ass kicked. The wrestlers did the moves to them, but they basically just did them for real. And that sucks. That's not kind. Okay, so you're going to blame your concussions on WWE, right? Well, if you didn't turn up to WWE to work, would you have worked somewhere else? Probably. You probably would have worked for WCW, would have been making less money, potentially, until about the mid-90s, and you'd still be in the same position. And okay, who are you going to sue when it comes to wrestling companies? There's no governing body. WWE, for all intents and purposes, I suppose, are the governing body. So when you talk about that, then you're looking at WWE are the NFL, but they're also, if you played for an NFL team, you would sue the NFL. But there's no governing body for wrestling. Maybe there should be. And I suppose WWE are the de facto governing body. But at the end of the day, after 2005, maybe between 2005 and 2010, when concussions really became something people were aware of, I don't think you've got a case. I just don't. I mean, Sabu maybe wrestled for a year or two in WWE when they revived ECW. He's probably had about 3% of his matches with that company, yet he's going to sue them. That makes no sense to me. I don't even know how you would take on that case. I suppose they're just hoping that there's enough disgruntled wrestlers that will get enough attention that they might get a small piece of the pie. But I think it's absolute bullshit. Absolute bullshit. You do physical sport, you're probably going to get hurt, and then there's going to be problems after that. And that's the way it is. That's the way it is. And if you have any misconceptions about that, then you're an idiot. Basically, yes, I'm calling Sabu an idiot. Yes, I'm calling Heidenreich an idiot. Yes, I'm calling any of these guys that are suing idiots. It's stupid. Now, if you're a guy who went to OVW or NXT and you'd never wrestled before, and they never said to you, you could get injured from this, and you went, okay, then I'm not going to do it, and then they kind of convinced you otherwise and you still did it, then maybe you've got a slight argument there. So someone like Adam Hassan, or if we were to take someone from NXT in the last 2-3 years, I mean, I think NXT will be the case that these guys will be made fully aware. They'll have a lot of literature to sign. They'll be made fully aware of the possible injuries, and they'll definitely be made aware of concussions. And then they'll sign a waiver to be performers, and that's it. So Adam Hassan might not have been, and if you don't remember him, he was kind of like he was meant to be, I don't know, people thought he was a terrorist only because he looked foreign, and then they actually ended up making him sort of a terrorist with this whole crazy angle where all these guys came out in masks and camel gear and assaulted the Undertaker and then tried to choke him with some sort of wire or whatever, and then that screwed the pooch, because that very week there was a bombing in London. But originally he started out as someone complaining about the fact he was treated like a terrorist just because he was different. But Adam Hassan came out, and I think he came out in 2005, I want to say midsummer 2005, and lasted for about a year until just before SummerSlam 2006, I think. Anyway, his run wasn't very long, and he probably trained at OVW. And if he wasn't told that he can get a concussion, that he can get a concussion, so I'm getting hot here. I'm getting excited, angry actually. Then okay, could he claim that? Oh, actually, I never thought that being a wrestler and being physical would ever hurt me, and they never told me that. So yeah, I'm going to sue them. You can maybe get away with that, maybe. But realistically, I think again that you're just a frickin' idiot, and you are fully aware. Yeah, you probably get hurt, but I wrestle, and before I wrestled, I always thought to myself, oh, these guys, you know, the injuries they have, and I could get hurt from this. And you look at Draws. I mean, Darren Drozdov was just going through a routine match, taking a power bomb from another well trained wrestler in D'Lo Brown, landed wrongly, you know, and now he's paralyzed. He's been paralyzed since 1999. You know, if that didn't let anyone know that wrestling, you know, things could go wrong at any time, then I don't know what could, what you needed for that. So I'm not into this whole wrestler suing. I think it's BS. And then the other part of it is that they're saying that because they were signed to this weird contract that said they couldn't they could work for WWE but they couldn't work for anyone else. But the way the contract was written was that WWE had no responsibility to them. Well, that's a separate thing, I think, and I think that is BS on WWE's part. I think WWE should provide, now that they're definitely big enough to do it, they should provide some sort of insurance, health insurance for these chaps. I also think they should provide the travel, personally. I don't think the guys, I don't know if you know how this works. If you're not a wrestling fan, then you probably won't know this. Wrestlers pay for their own travel and their own accommodation unless they're a really, really high level. I'm only to apologise for the works. If you hear some like digging or whatever, I've got one side of my house I've got bagpipes and guitars, and the other side I've got seagulls' nests and people working on Perth Theatre. But again, hopefully in post it's going to work out. Yeah, so you've got the top guys, Undertaker and such, John Cena. They would have their travel paid for. But pretty much 90% of the staff of the wrestlers are asked to pay for their travel themselves. And it was just the way the business was back in the day, and that's just kind of the standard that's been set. I think WWE should pay for that or increase their wages. I also think you know, this independent contractor thing is a little bit BS, and I think there maybe should be some healthcare insurance or whatever. I don't really know how it works in the States, but there should be something for the guys later on. And maybe if you're with the company for a certain amount of time, you get a retirement package. But then you could argue that royalties are your retirement package, and that the whole idea of being a wrestler is to make a lot of money, and you make a lot of money fast. And maybe these guys just go ahead and save it. I mean, at the end of the day, all these guys knew that they were going to compete in a physical sport, so they would get injured, and all these guys knew that their travel costs and such wouldn't be covered, so maybe not party up every night, smash loads of cocaine, loads of strippers, loads of ring rats, whatever. Maybe instead of partying every single night, you suck it up and you have a couple of nights in a week and you save some money. And this is me talking about the 80s and 90s party lifestyle on the road. I think pretty much now guys and gals don't do it like they used to, certainly. And I'd be surprised if they did, because it would be publicised more if these wrestlers were out partying. It just would be. I actually don't think they've got the time to do it. They've got so much media coverage to do and interviews and such. They've not got the time to be partying. It literally becomes your life if you're WWE now. But whereas these chaps in the 80s and 90s, they would have, they would have basically just been told, get to the show, you do the show, and then you can pretty much go. And then they just partied up, then got to the gym the next day, got some lunch, then went to the show, and then party again. So it's a different culture now. So I do think WWE should change that aspect. But in terms of concussions and whether they're responsible for these things, no, I wouldn't say so. I mean, you didn't have to be a wrestler. You chose to be a wrestler. And you also, the bulk of these guys seem to have wrestled and made their name somewhere else in a lot of cases. And then they're suing WWE because they're the biggest dog in town. But they're not a governing body, not like the NFL. So, do we need a wrestling governing body? Yeah, maybe. But, I think the NWA still exists, and I believe they're meant to be a governing body, so maybe we sue the NWA, because they kind of believe themselves to be that. So that was what it was kind of set up to be originally the NWA was kind of meant to be like the NFL in a sort of way, where all the promotions are accountable to one group, and they decide what's best for business, best for business that way, and what's best for the wrestlers. So yeah, actually, go sue NWA. That makes much more sense to me. Okay, so that was my podcast. A little bit different, not movie talk news, but like I said before, I may talk about movies, I may talk about wrestling, I may talk about UFC, I may talk about fitness, health and fitness. It's mostly going to be to do with movies, to be perfectly honest, because it's fun and easy going. But occasionally you might get a bit of a rant, and this one was on. Well, I suppose it turned out a bit of a talk on steroids. So you got steroids, you got Bork Laser, and you've got WWE wrestlers, former WWE wrestlers suing WWE for their concussions. I have been the Buff Geek. I'll catch